What's up, guys? It's Miss Painter. Today what I'm going to be going over with you guys is our introduction to The Outsiders, which is the novel that we are going to be reading this quarter. Obviously, we're not meeting in person, but this novel is available for free online, so I'm going to be posting the link to the novel in your Google Classroom so you have access to it. So I'll be posting the full text as well as audio recordings of the novel so you can read and listen along. If you would like to purchase the novel or you have the novel and you'd rather read the paper copy, that's completely fine, but it is available for free and I will be posting the material into your Google Classroom so you can read it. So what we're going to be going over today is sort of just introducing The Outsiders. We're going to go over some information about the author, some information about the 1960s, some character information, themes, and basic elements of the book. We'll talk about 1960s slang and lots of other fun things. So what this image right here is this is the movie poster for The Outsiders. The movie is actually really fantastic. I think it's very much on par with the book. They did a really good job. They got some really fantastic actors. So I love the movie. So this is just the movie poster for The Outsiders. So we'll start with our author, who is S.E. Hinton. Her name is actually Susan Eloise Hinton, but she went by S.E. She published The Outsiders in 1967 when she was 17 years old. She began writing it at 15, so when she was not that much older than most of you guys are. The story was inspired by real-life events that were happening at her high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's not necessarily based on a true story, but it is based on real things that she witnessed that her and her friends went through when they were in high school. The Outsiders is widely considered the first realistic young adult novel. At the time, there were books for adults and there were books for young children, but there wasn't really anything for middle school or early high school students, so this is really considered the first real young adult novel, and it did receive a good amount of criticism for being too violent or too grown up, but it really resonated very, very much so with young adults because a lot of them were experiencing these issues, and this was the first time someone had really written about it. Some other books that she has written include Rumblefish, Text, and That Was Then, This Is Now. That Was Then, This Is Now is actually set in the same world as The Outsiders, so it's not necessarily a sequel, but we see a lot of the same characters and it's the same setting, so it's sort of just set in the same world. So S.E. Hinton went by her initials instead of her full name, instead of going by Susan Eloise, because she did not want her readers to know that she was a woman. At the time, people did not think women could successfully write from the viewpoint of a man. We've seen many women and female authors do this throughout time, specifically J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, did this as well, but lots and lots of female authors have had to do this because they were not respected as authors. So 1967 in the USA, what was life kind of like? Lyndon Baines Johnson is president at the time. A first-class stamp cost 5 cents. The U.S. population was 198 million, and the world population was 3.5 billion. The Andy Griffith Show was the #1 TV show. The Beatles were extremely popular at the time, and a popular movie was Casino Royale. Some music and film that was popular during this time, Elvis Presley and the Beatles. The Beach Boys were extremely popular, and beach movies were a really big deal at the time. This actor right here is actually pretty important in our first chapter, Paul Newman. Our main character, Ponyboy, in the first chapter, first couple paragraphs, mentions him and says that, I kind of wish I looked like him as he's describing himself. So that is who Paul Newman is, just so you know you have a point of reference. The setting is Tulsa, Oklahoma, right above our great state of Texas. So here's where Tulsa is. It's kind of a more rural town. It's not so much a big city during the 60s. So that's the setting of our novel. And then we're going to briefly go over some 1960s slang. So some of the words that they used during this time is a lot different than words we use today. So I just wanted to go over them so you know what the characters are talking about throughout the novel. So we'll start with fuzz, which is the police. This, used in a sentence, would be something like, watch out, the fuzz is after us. We see the police involved a lot kind of throughout the story as we see gang violence and we see issues with families. And so the police are actually quite often involved, and so a term for that is the fuzz. Next up, we have a heater, which is a gun. When did you start carrying a heater? So like I said, there's lots of violence in this story, and the gangs kind of need a way to defend themselves. So that is what the slang for a gun is heater. Broad is kind of a derogatory term for a girl. I maybe wouldn't use it. It's not necessarily like a nice word to use, but used in a sentence, it would be that Kim is one knockout broad. The word rank means something stinks, like it's not very good, so that band you like is rank. Next up, tough, T-U-F-F, means something is cool. So a 1967 Mustang is one tough car. So it means something that is cool and respected and that they like. A hood is someone who is viewed as a troublemaker. The hoods cause trouble at night. So maybe they get in trouble with the law, they get in trouble at school, there's different things going on. They're kind of seen as not good people in society. Cancer stick or weed is a cigarette. We actually see cigarettes really commonly throughout this novel, but they are referred to as cancer stick or weed. A lot of the kids sort of start smoking at a very early age, and so we see that throughout the novel. The word jumped means to get attacked. He got jumped by 3 guys. To be hacked off means to be angry. I was hacked off at my parents'. A rumble is a fight, so if they're saying I'm getting ready for a rumble, or there was a big rumble at the park, that means that there's a fist fight going on. To be pickled means to be drunk or under the influence of something, so he got really pickled. To make tracks means to leave or run away, to sort of get away from a situation, so used in a sentence, it would be hurry, we gotta make tracks. The cooler is jail, so you go to jail to cool down after you've broken the law. So used in a sentence, it would be, when did you get out of the cooler? And then JD means juvenile delinquent, and this is used kind of interchangeably with the word hood. So the greasers get called JDs and hoods throughout the novel, and so the JD got 5 months in jail. That's what JD stands for, juvenile delinquent. Okay, so that's it for slang. We're going to move on to the 2 major groups of characters in The Outsiders. So we have the greasers and the socias. I know this is spelled kind of like socks, but it's pronounced socias. It's short for the word socials. So the greasers, they wear jeans, leather jackets, and t-shirts. They kind of have a bad reputation in town. The police and the teachers and all the sort of adults in town don't really like them very much. They think very poorly of them. Most of them come from low income, not as wealthy families, and they're not really respected in society. On the other hand, we have the socias, who are extremely preppy. They wear things like madras, clothes with a plaid design. They dress very well. And even though they're doing a lot of the same things that the greasers are doing, they're viewed with a lot more respect. So we see this kind of gap in wealth, also creating a gap in respect, which is not a good thing, and it causes a lot of conflict throughout the novel. So this is a picture of the greasers from the movie. These are the actors who played them. Throughout this, we see drive-in movies where both the socias and greasers can be found watching drive-in movies, and it causes some conflict because they're both in the same space. Clothing in the hood. So the coolest young men, the coolest greasers, often wore leather jackets over t-shirts with jeans and loafer shoes. This outfit would make people think that the wearer was a hood, so someone who was not to be respected. The greasers' ducktail. So the greasers were given that name because they wore so much grease in their hair to get their hair to stay this way, because a lot of hair grease was required for this look. So that is how they got their name. The socias, so the blue Mustang represents the upper class socias. It stands for money, power, and authority. So a lot of the stuff that the socias had was sort of given to them by their parents. They were given money and cars, and so there was sort of some resentment when the greasers would see this blue Mustang. It stands for money and power, but they felt like the socias didn't really earn it. They were just sort of handed everything in life. The rings that the socias wear are also a symbol of wealth, and those are important in the story as well. The switchblade it's a type of knife that the greasers would carry to feel safer and protected. There was lots of fights and gang fighting going on, and so they needed weapons to defend themselves in fights. The cigarette is a symbol commonly seen in the book as well. Many of the greasers started smoking at an extremely early age. It made them feel older and helped them fit into their group. And then as they actually did get older, it became a way of passing time and keeping calm. But this is extremely bad. They started smoking cigarettes when they were very young, which is not good for them at all. So here are the two of the cars that are mentioned in The Outsiders, the Corvair, and this is a 65 Ford Mustang. So who are the greasers? We're really quickly going to go over the characters that we see. The images I included are the actors from the movie, just so you have kind of a picture of what they look like in the movie. So Ponyboy Curtis, and that is his real name that his parents gave him. He is the narrator and the main character throughout the novel. The story is told from his perspective and first-person point of view. He is the youngest Curtis brother. So there are three brothers, and he is the youngest one. So next up we have Soda Pop Curtis. He's the middle Curtis brother. He's always energetic and happy. He tries to keep the peace between his brothers. So he's kind of like the peacekeeper whenever his brothers start arguing. Daryl or Derry Curtis, he's the oldest Curtis brother. He works so that Soda and Ponyboy can stay in school, and he looks after them like a parent. So the three brothers, the Curtis brothers, their parents died in a car accident, and so Daryl has to look after them, and he has to work to support them so that they don't get taken away. Okay, so he acts as their guardian and makes sure that they're provided for. See, there's some of our other greasers that we see in the novel. So we have Johnny Cade. He is one of the younger members of the gang and Ponyboy's closest friend. Dallas Winston is one of the older members of the gang, and he has done time in jail. He has like one of the worst reputations of the gang. He's spent a lot of time in jail before. Two-Bit Matthews is the oldest member of the gang, a wisecracker who likes making jokes. And then Steve Randall is 17 years old and Soda Pop's best friend in the gang. These are some of the socias. There are more socias than just the four of them, but these are the four most important ones that we see throughout the novel. First, we have Bob Sheldon, who's kind of the leader, and he's dating Cherry Valance. Now, Cherry Valance right here, she's a social girl who's dating Bob, but she hates the fighting that goes on between the gangs. She wants it to stop, and we see her sort of interact with both the greasers and the socias. Which isn't really heard of. Most of the socias don't even speak to the greasers, but she does, okay? Next up, we have Randy Adderson. He's Bob's best friend, and he's dating Marcia. And then Marcia is Cherry's best friend, and she's dating Brandy. So these two are best friends, these two are best friends, and then we have dating and dating, okay? And so here are some main themes that we see throughout The Outsiders. So this kind of struggle between rich and poor. The greasers are really looked down on because they're not as wealthy. And so we see this kind of disrespect that's shown to them. So kind of the struggle between the two gangs throughout the novel. So between the rich and the poor. The power of friendship, we see that in the novel, the things that we can accomplish with our friends by our side. This kind of big question, what does it mean to be a hero? And then the journey from youth to adulthood, so this coming of age, this idea of coming of age. Okay, so that's our last slide. Those are all the things that I really wanted to go over with you guys. I'm super excited to start this novel, and I think you guys are all going to love The Outsiders.